Well, hello, everyone. Hope everyone can hear me well. Hi, my name is Daniel. I work on Pioneer along with a couple of other brave people today that are setting up what is hopefully going to be a couple of interesting minutes, maybe an hour or two of internet content for you. We have a lot of interesting things coming up for you today. Before I give you just a quick overview of what's going to happen, I do want to tell you very quickly what the heck Pioneer is, if you're not sure. It is effectively a online startup accelerator, maybe even an online startup generator. And what I mean by that is we take people from around the world who are working on projects, people who aren't quite sure if what they have is just, a weekend idea or a real company. And then we help them kind of take it a step forward, get a little bit of validation, more importantly, kind of meet a like-minded set of community of people, funding, guidance, the whole gamut. Pioneer is fully remote. You can get started from anywhere where you are in the world. And really what we're trying to do is bring the magic that makes Silicon Valley work, the dynamism that makes California the land of the kind of economic frontier for the past, 50 or 60 years, certainly the technological one, and kind of bleed that into the internet. We want everyone to experience what it's like, to be, wander the streets of Palo Alto, San Francisco, or London. And so Pioneer is really an attempt to kind of rebuild that sense of presence, that sense of place, a city almost on the internet of people kind of working on interesting projects that may turn into, the next great set of companies, the next Stripes, Airbnbs, Figmas, and what have you. So check it out. All that being said, we're going to have an interesting mix of content for you today. We are going to show you some of the companies founded here at Pioneer. They'll be interviewed by a bunch of different founders as their hosts. And so we have Austen Allred, who's the founder of a company called LambdaSchool that I think many of you have seen probably on the bits over in the internet. Shaun Maguire, who founded multiple companies as an elite marathoner, now a partner at Sequoia, and Traynor, the founder of Intercom. We'll be interviewing a bunch of different founders from around the world, from Iran to Ireland, about the companies that they're building. We are also going to have two interesting interviews to kind of mix it up throughout the day. One with Dylan Field, the founder of Figma, who is going to pitch Figma to us as if it was a seed company. This should be quite inspiring and interesting to watch. The second interesting thing we're going to do is we're going to have a quick kind of lightning round fireside chat conversation and interview with Sam Teller, who until very recently was Elon's chief of staff. I think that stands to be quite intriguing and exciting. Anyway, so that's the overview of what we're going to do today. I think it should be a lot of fun. We're going to try to keep it lively and interesting. As we all know, there's a lot going on in the world right now, and we think hopefully Pioneer can be an inspiring, consistent, durable source of optimism and inspiration for people while we kind of wade through the sea of uncertainty and handle this cosmic hairball of a year. All of that being said, I'd like to hand it over to Jackson now from Pioneer, who is going to walk us through some of the details of the format today. Jackson, take it away. And we would love to hear you at some point. But as...
Yes, Daniel,
yes, now we
thank you very much. All right, so yeah, I'm going to lead us very briefly through the format today. It is fairly simple for everybody watching. You have three options. If you're on our site right now watching, you'll see that you can chat with any of our pioneers before, during, and after their presentation. Each pioneer has their own chat room. So we hope and we expect you to be as engaging as possible and to fostering conversation there as much as possible throughout. You can also follow any of the pioneers, again, before, during, and after. And what that'll do is we will facilitate an exchange of emails afterward to keep you connected. And then the last feature of the live stream today is points. Everyone watching has 200 points to distribute at their discretion to their favorite presentations as we go along. And at the end, we will announce our winner, our top three winners, our crowd favorites. In terms of the actual presentations themselves, the last thing I'll mention is that each pioneer will have about 2 minutes to present, and that'll be followed by about a 5-minute fireside chat with our hosts. With that, I think we can get right into it and bring Austen Allred, the CEO and founder of LambdaSchool, up to this stage.
Hello, hello.
Austen, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
And our pioneers, first pioneers up are going to be the team Rant from USA and Canada. We have Ansh, Rishabh, and Sam. Go ahead, guys.
Hi, so we're building Rant, disappearing voice chats. Audio is the future of communication, and texting was never supposed to be the way we communicated with the people we love, as it's impersonal and disregards emotion. And voice has been overlooked as a communication medium, and incumbents focus on synchronous communication, making it more inconvenient than it should be. Now is the perfect time for voice, as listening has become more popular than ever. WeChat users sent 6.1 billion voice chats each day, and Clubhouse raised at $100 million valuation with little to no traction. Rant is our solution, which lets users exchange disappearing voice chats, providing the benefits of calling with the convenience of texting. What makes us different is that we let users exchange disappearing voices, which lets conversations flow how they do naturally, without the fear of permanency. Also, we're a voice-only platform, which means our users have sent more voice messages on Rant than all previous communication apps. Also, we're asynchronous, which means that users don't have to be on the call at the same time and can have conversations at their convenience.
So we've launched our public beta 8 days ago, and in these 8 days, we've amassed over 250 users, had over 13,000 voice chats sent and received on our platform, enabling over 1,000 connections to be made. Along with organic growth through friend invites, we've gotten over 12 influencers with combined 5 million impressions lined up to better engage our fans, their fans. So we also have over 10 college ambassadors ready to spread the word. So our team has vast experience in this space with over 1,000 user interviews conducted at previous consumer-facing startups, individually built apps with over 300,000 users, and prior work at Apple, developing new features on the Siri team. So scan this QR code to get Rant now. We are raising a pre-seed, so reach out to founder at tryrant.co to learn more. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Downloading the app.
So Austen, what do you think this is?
So yeah, I think that is like, I get the disappearing voice chat. What I'm not totally sure of is it channel based? Is it more WhatsApp or more Twitter, if that makes sense? Like, am I sending it in a one-on-one conversation to a friend, or am I sending it out into the ether for people to listen to for a short period of time? How are the connections made?
So connections are made by just adding friends. We've kept it open right now because we allow for Ask Me Anythings for incoming freshmen. That's our initial growth spurt channel. So it's more like a Snapchat than a Twitter.
Okay. So Snapchat's probably a good analogy. There's, so I can send a broad, I guess I'm asking, is it broadcast, is it group, or is it one-to-one?
One-to-one.
One-to-one.
That's
okay. Yeah, so I mean, my first impression is that apps like this are super, super valuable. But the difficult thing is getting adoption on both sides, right? So if I want to send a message to Daniel has to have the app, and I have to have the app, which can be both a really good and a really bad thing, right? Really good because then if I want to use it, I force Daniel to download it. Really bad because if I have it alone, it isn't really helpful. So how do you solve that chicken and egg problem?
Right. So a little bit about that. So we are creating network effects within communities, a lot within college communities, where they both get something out of it. But also we're working with influencers, and their fans reach out to them, and they want to both, like on the influencer side, they want to reach out to their fans and connect with them more. And on the fan side, they want to get to know the influencer themselves.
And in addition to that, we've also identified some certain niches like Ask Me Anythings for incoming freshmen. So we partnered up with juniors and seniors of different colleges to conduct Ask Me Anythings on our platform. And this is scheduled in the next 2 weeks.
Tell me more about that. How does it Ask Me Anything work if it's a messaging app effectively?
Exactly. So we are open right now. So it's an open invite. So you can just add anyone. So these people post stories on other platforms like Snapchat or Instagram, saying that like you can just ask me all the questions here. So people can basically add them and they can go through it really, really fast, like answer each question one-on-one really fast and move through the order in that way.
It's interesting because it feels like have you had any, what have you had the most traction around? What have people been most excited about to use it for?
So the entire sort of focus has been on reducing the friction of voice. So it's as easy as texting, which we do through disappearing voice chat. So think of it like this, right? Instead of a text, instead of the keyboard, you only have one button. And if you send a voice, you always receive a voice, which reduces the friction, which is why people are using it for normal conversations now, our primary users, which is why we've had over 13,000 voice messages sent and received in such a short time.
So if you're to profile your average user, is it, you know, me just sending random chats to my friend, or like what is the functionality that someone is, I mean, I know that's a little bit vague, but like, what's that? Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to wrap my mind around it still.
Hey, random question, Austen. So obviously there's a chicken and egg problem, right? Lots of chicken and egg problems, delicious. But one way people have fixed these problems in other social networks is they pick a niche community to seed in. You know, famous quotes from Mark Zuckerberg in, what was it, 2005, Harvard, Facebook should never expand beyond Harvard. That's where it got big. And, you know, everyone, as a result, tests colleges first. Should they try to just grow in a small micro community? And if so, would LambdaSchool students perhaps be an interesting place to experiment?
Yeah, so I think the interesting thing to me is that what you are saying is, hey, it's a one-to-one, you know, easy way to make chat simple. But then your first use case of an AMA feels like actually a really interesting application of not exact, like, it feels like you're kind of hacking your own app to enable that, right? Which is always fascinating to me. So I'm curious, is that hack because that seems like a good user acquisition hack, or is that because that seems to be how people want to use it and the product isn't built that way yet?
So a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is a good way to get users introduced to us in our platform, but also, yeah, we are looking to expand in different ways. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So
it's fascinating. Yeah, I think one of the issues one of the things that's really powerful about apps like these, you know, I think about when WhatsApp came out, you know, everyone was asking Jan, like, what is this for? Because, like, I don't know, like messaging people, like staying in touch. I want to stay in touch and I don't want to have to pay for texts. It's a really simple application. The power of that is that you can use WhatsApp for anything and everything. The difficulty is that it's so, I don't want to say generic, but it's like so ambiguous that it's super
broad versus specific. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And
thank you for saving me, Daniel.
Gotcha. No. You're deep in thought. Okay. Sadly, I think we are. Wow. You have a giant Gaussian blur on your camera, your lens.
I don't know what this camera is, but I have to open this camera settings app and then it resets. So
today we learned that Austen is secretly at a CNN studio. Anyway, guys, this has been great. I think we're sadly out of time, and I'm going to let Jackson transfer us to the next episode. Good luck, Rant, guys. Thank you, Austen.
Very cool, guys.
Thank you.
Good stuff, Rant. Next up, we have Cameron Baughn from Canada. From California, and he will be presenting Forge.
Canada, California, they're all the same these days. As we hook them up, it's interesting, Austen, one quick thought, walkie-talkies exist. So that's kind of just an interesting old school analogy to Rant. All right, Forge, let's do it.
All right. Hello, Austen. Hello, everyone. My name is Cameron, and I am building Forge, which is a language school in your pocket. I'm an avid language learner myself. I've studied 4 languages, including minoring in Japanese at Stanford. And I found this consistent problem, and I'm not the only one, which is that the content and tools that are out there are incredibly disconnected and siloed. Essentially, everything you need exists out there on the internet to learn a new language, but it's not all connected together and brought into one system. So that's what we're doing. When you open up Forge, we start you on a fundamentals course. We have really in-depth explanations, these kind of long reading lessons, and which we have way more content than anyone else has at all, a full textbook, basically. Then we combine that with interactive exercises to really lock things in. But that's just the start. We then move on to loading that content automatically into dynamic review tools, so we can provide you with tools to review concepts and vocab, like the example is here, in a spaced repetition system with multiple question types and multimedia. We should address the green owl in the room, which is the most common question I get when talking about Forge, which is, what about Duolingo? Duolingo's fun, no doubt. I've used it extensively myself, but it does not teach you a language in the way you're expecting, right? Duolingo trains you for Duolingo. You get better, you become a master of multiple choice, and you get good at Duolingo, then you go try and talk to someone and you cannot understand them. So that's what we're building, is basically a Duolingo that actually prepares you for the real world, right? We're bringing together all the content you could need, combining it with those dynamic review tools, and packaging it up into that smooth UI. Forge is a school. It just doesn't feel like school. Right now, we have around 1,800 downloads across iOS and Android. Our users are completing 7 to 8 lessons every day. And we've doubled our monthly retention since our last update about 6 weeks ago. What you're seeing there is essentially brand new. So if you're interested, you can download Forge at forge.co, find links for both Android and iOS, and we are raising right now, so you can contact me at cameron@forge.co.
Awesome, super interesting. So it's always like, it's fascinating to me when there is a company that's in a market that's so dominated by one player that you actually have and that was the thing going through my mind. It's like, oh, it's like Duolingo, but somehow different. Yes. So what do you think it is? I think this is perhaps the most important question to ponder on. What is it that makes Duolingo so successful? Why has Duolingo dominated the market?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is definitely has the largest both market share and mind share of any app out there. And it's mainly because it's incredibly addicting, and that they've built this, just like, they've done really well at building that game out where you just want to come back every day. I talked to a user who had a 1,000-day streak. So she'd been doing this every day for 3 years and just like could not let it go, even though she acknowledged that it wasn't the best way to learn, right? So that is I think the biggest challenge for us is getting people off of that and onto here. Although, to be fair, they do have a lot of churn, so people are looking for something more robust.
Sure. So your core thesis is, to put words in your mouth, Duolingo built a really addictive game engine, and the effectiveness of that engine, doesn't really matter, because Duolingo is not like getting paid to actually teach you a language. It's getting paid for you to keep using the app.
Right. Their tagline is, we make learning free and fun. And my question has always been, well, what about effective and
what about the learning piece?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So what do you do? So that kind of gets to the next core piece of your thesis. What are you doing that's different? I mean, obviously, I've spent a ton of time looking at different pedagogical methodologies.
Yeah.
What's your core thesis there for what Duolingo? I mean, who cares about Duolingo, for the right way for people to learn and stay engaged?
Yeah. So
Cameron, as you think about answering, Austen, if you could just hit that camera lens again, that'd be great. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that's a great question. It is from just like taking tech out of it, the actual approach is completely different. They have kind of this bottom-up approach of throwing you into different lessons and different, like saying, hey, translate this and figure out the grammar and things on your own. So we flipped it completely and said, hey, no, we like textbooks. We like classes where they actually teach you the concepts, right? I liked my Japanese classes in college. And so we're making our feature set is much more comparative to a university classroom than it is to Rosetta Stone or something like that. So sure. Actually introducing you, like the UI is very similar and approachable that way, but what's going on behind the scenes is completely different. There's like tons of content and really robust, a whole library of stuff behind.
Yeah, so you're just saying, hey, let's just take a fundamental classroom experience of learning a language and put it into an app, as opposed to this cute little quirky game thing that doesn't really work.
Exactly. I see new apps every day that say you're learning a language wrong. Here's a brand new way to learn. And I think, many thousands of years of humans learning language can't be completely wrong. There's no brand new ways, right? So let's take that and apply what we can from technology to it.
Yes. So I think you just asked my next question, which is how do you stand out in that flooded of a market when there are that many apps? Like, how do you gain traction?
That's been the challenge. Fortunately, most of our users have come from places like the different Reddit language learning communities. So I get kind of, direct feedback from them, and both the methodology of providing really robust resources for them, and kind of the general vision of connecting up these different pieces. I think you saw that we have quite a different experience right now, but it will continue to build on that as we get more content and things. But the essentially marketing challenge and even getting people on in that crowded of a space is definitely the biggest challenge for us.
Last question, I know we're out of time. So I saw Spanish. I assume basically every language learning app has Spanish.
Yeah.
Are there, do you speak Spanish?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any, I think a really interesting user acquisition hack, are there any quasi-esoteric languages that aren't covered well by language learning apps? For example, I speak Russian. There are not very many good Russian learning apps. That the market size is obviously smaller, but anyway, I think that could be an interesting.
I started studying Swedish, and it's the same there, where there's just nothing for ASL, for example, things like that. So and I think the flip side is going from Spanish to English will actually be bigger in the long run than going English to Spanish. That's just what we've stared with to kind of build up the tech.
One thing that I think could be interesting as we move on, just a thought that's occurring is one use case that I think Duolingo seems to have captured well is couples. You're dating someone, you're married to someone who speaks another language, you want to know. So I wonder if that's an interesting vector to grow.
That's where we get to the level 2 kind of things, where it gets into more topic based, and we can go to those specific vectors of, hey, you're in a couple, hey, you're doing business, you're a pilot, whatever that is, and go specific to your needs.
Super cool. Jackson, well, thank you. This was awesome.
Cool.
Jackson,
thank you. Awesome.
I see you've switched your microphone technology. Tell us what's next.
Indeed, I have. Next up, thank you, Cameron. Next up, we have our final pioneer with Austen is going to be Tom McCarthy from Ireland. Okay. And he'll be presenting Patch.
And as Tom gets set up,
working on it.
Yep.
There we go.
We got to get your camera some glasses, Austen.
It's Logitech. Like, you'd think they'd have this figured out by now. I don't know.
Well, it's all of that Chinese bootloaders. They take up space.
I did buy it from Amazon.
Exactly, Tom.
All right. Hey.
I think you bought it from Amazon. Anyway, moving on.
Ready? All right. Hey, Daniel. Hey, Austen. Hey, everybody. So I'm Tom. I'm a physics student in Trinity College, Dublin, and I'm building Patch. So Patch finds and accelerates great young builders. We bring together high potential young people and immerse them in an environment that helps them fulfill that potential. We're focused on exploring, learning, and building. Learning by doing, I meant to say. And so you're probably asking, is it a startup accelerator? No, it's a people accelerator. Now, let me show you one of last year's participants, Diana. She's an award-winning young biochemist, and she'll tell you a bit more about why Patch is needed.
And there's no one place, I think, in Ireland where you can meet a group of people with cool backgrounds, cool stories, cool projects coming up and just fascinating lives, and being able to talk with them and like connect with them and see what they're like. And I think Patch has done that.
So we bring together extraordinary young people like Diana, and we give them a space where they can build together and create. Now, the idea is that Patch is a local search network that brings together such young people so that they can later go on to global success through the likes of Pioneer. Last summer, we ran our pilot program. It took place in Dogpatch Labs. That's a startup hub in Dublin. Now, we had 12 participants take part. They had previously worked on quantum computing algorithms. Diana had done biochemistry research, and some of them, they had just done a lot of hacking. And they spent 6 weeks building projects together. They ranged from an internet-first textbook to a 3D printing tool for kids' Minecraft creations, and CropSafe, incidentally, a startup that's now top of the global Pioneer leaderboard. Teams were also paired with expert mentors, and they learned from inspiring role models who gave talks and workshops. This includes Traynor of Intercom and other founders of businesses worth billions of dollars. Now, this summer we're running an expanded and refined summer accelerator. It's Patch 2020. It's remote first due to the pandemic, and we've got an amazing lead mentor. He's a startup founder whose company was previously acquired by Facebook. We'll continue to grow Patch, and in the future we'll expand into more initiatives like, say, curated work experience programs. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is to create the most effective environment for high potential young people to realize that potential. Potential is builders of the future. Now, if you know someone, a teenager who should take part, get in touch, or if you'd like to support us in any way, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks very much.
Fascinating. First of all, I'm super jealous of all you youngins who get to do stuff like this. Me and Daniel had to like hang out on random message boards and try to find like-minded people. So really, really cool. What age groups are you targeting?
So our focus is on 16 to 19-year-olds. A little bit lenient. So if someone's a great fit when they're like a year within or out of that, we're open. But 16 to 19.
How do people find out about you?
So as I mentioned, we're very locally search network, but kind of three-pronged approach. And recruiting is open now, so applications are open for the next 2 weeks. But one is really high signal is referrals from previous participants. So people that took part last year's cohort, we're going out through all them. They're very, people who took part are really good at recognizing who's a good fit for the program for most extent. Second of all, we reach out through existing organizations. So things like not national science fairs, like say the BT Young Scientist, which Patrick Collison won when he was a teenager, and other initiatives that are really well networked in Ireland already. And then also we're doing a bit of media outreach, and that's going live this week around the country.
How does select? What is the application process like, and how do you determine whether somebody ought to be a part of it?
Right. So the application process this year is two stages. We start off with just text applications. They're the ones that are open for the next 2 weeks. And after that, we shortlist and we'll do quick short video interviews with everybody. Now, what the text application is looking to do is, like, to give you a sense of the profile, what we're looking for is, as I mentioned, high potential young people. But what does that entail? It's hard enough to recognize, and I guess that's what we're trying to get better and better at as we go on. I guess you have some experience with that at Lambda as well, right? But we're looking for people who are proactive, who teach themselves and can sort of show a very high-speed trajectory in learning by doing and applying themselves. So in the application form with the text, we ask them about what projects have you done, what are your skills that you've developed, and also just sort of looking for sort of quirky out-of-the-box stuff, things, signs that they take initiative, things like, just what's I guess like the Y Combinator program question or Sam Altman question, where what's something you hacked or sometime you broke a rule and that sort of stuff.
Austin, you bring up an interesting question about the message boards. Part of what was interesting about the early internet is it was less populous, and to be online, you had to be somewhat weird. So free selection was already happening by the fact that, you went on news groups.
It was nerds by virtue of you being on the internet at all. Yeah,
that's right. And obviously today everything's easier. So it is an interesting question, I think, that you bring up. Now that access to the web is, significantly more ubiquitous, selection becomes a little bit more difficult. So I guess the question I would ask you, Austen, given what you do with LambdaSchool, and given the fact that many LambdaSchool students, as far as I can tell, are incredibly conscientious and motivated, what are kind of interesting gauntlets creative ways, there's kind of obvious stuff, various tests and whatever. What are kind of interesting ways where if you were starting from scratch now, where you could kind of put Hogwarts at the top of the mountain such that the only people that ascend to the top, are people with good legs, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, so what we select for is probably a little bit different than what you may select for, because we're optimizing for will you get a job, and that's all I really care about. You're optimizing for are you smart and are you interesting and are you interested, right? And I think that's like, I mean, one of the reasons I say I'm jealous is like I had no, there wasn't a really good way for people like me and Daniel Gross. I think Daniel's actually a little younger than I am. Like, unless we stumbled upon some random, what was that?
Not in spirit. Go ahead.
But yeah, so
should
it's a really good question.
Yeah, should Patch? I guess what I'm trying to claw at is what is the equivalent of what is the equivalent scene basically that the internet itself was in 2002?
Right. So kind of the question is, how does the hurdle become nerdy enough that nerdy is maybe the wrong term, but like you're trying to select for a type of person who is
you're trying to put in a filter, right? So where people sort of by virtue of being part of whatever niche group or doing whatever activity. What is that thing? Like what we do is by sections we go out through groups like the Coder Dojo and the science fairs, and I think that's a selection filter in a way. I don't know if it's as specific as the early internet is yet, but that's kind of what we're.
Science fair is actually a pretty good filter because that's not something everybody does, right? You have to be sufficiently nerdy to like enter into high levels of science fairs, I think. The other thing that I think is fascinating is if there's a way to just filter for some combination of intelligence and drive generally, like getting all the smart, motivated people in the same room is super, super powerful.
Long term, if we could create like a widespread like screen for just smart, motivated, interested people based on some general test, maybe that's a holy grail. That may not be common.
I do think, I'm sorry, we're going to have to advance to the next one, but I do think, by the way, on that front, something fun to think about, Tom, and is not the test. So the test is the obvious way of doing this. Some type of way of truly assessing it, someone's conscientiousness or intellect. The more interesting thing is what are free tests? Like I guarantee you, anyone writing Lisp, you've already selected yourself into the fact that you're weird, introverted, probably are a hacker, and probably are into, I don't know, aesthetically pleasing programming languages. That says a lot about you. Anyway,
people have organically filtered themselves into groups by doing stuff like that is super interesting. Yeah.
Hey, thanks very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Tom. Thank you very much, Austen. This is great. I'm glad we got a chance to demo the best of Logitech's technology with you. Plus, your energy and enthusiasm was great.
This webinar is sponsored by Logitech.
Exactly. I'm certainly sponsored by Nike. So thank you again. Jackson, who's up next?
All right, yes. Well, thank you again, Austen. And our next host is Shaun Maguire. Shaun is a partner at Sequoia, also founder.
Who should really be? Oh my God, he's also sponsored by Nike.
That's what I was trying to say, Daniel. I changed the view so you could see that I'm wearing the same shirt as you.
Well, you're a real athlete. I'm just joking around here, but we can talk about that afterwards. All right, Shaun, you'll be. I don't know where his face is. Arsalan, are you there?
Yep.
Okay, you're Arsalan. Take it away.
So hi, everybody. I'm Arsalan. I'm a mechanical engineer from Kashmir, and I'm currently in San Francisco. I'm building LiveDocs. LiveDocs is the modern day office suite. With LiveDocs, teams can save time and money by automating the repetitive and mundane task of updating documents. So let's dive straight into it and show you what it looks like. What you're seeing here, besides the rich collaborative editor, is a completely programmable document. This here is an example of a daily business report that updates itself with data from tools like Salesforce, Stripe, Amplitude, QuickBooks. It also integrates with on-prem software and your own internal API, of course. You can then set up triggers and actions to manipulate this document. You can do everything from configuring simple alerts and approvals all the way to automating complex multi-stage processes. And when your document needs,
a crazy mock that you made in Figma, right? This is real software. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, just clarifying.
When your document needs data from other sources and services, LiveDocs lets you sign into those services and makes all your data points, tables, and visualizations available to you and your team to use in your documents. Use LiveDocs, for example, to automatically update the weekly or daily sales report with information entered by a sales team in Salesforce, and then build a quick automation to update the weekly sales report and send it out at every Monday at 9 a.m. Boom, problem solved. And the reason we're excited about this is that companies all the way from Fortune 500s to two-person startups run on documents. Yet nobody really likes driving ownership of the documents. And we can see why, because that usually involves pasting in numbers, putting in screenshots, and dealing with subsequent typos, and the please fix thanks, and navigating the entire maze of permissions and account passwords to do so. Sales teams, for example, spend only 34% of their time actually doing sales. Product spec, as any product manager will tell you, is an endless nightmare of nagging stakeholders to update the spec, adding customer feedback wherever relevant, only to have that out-of-date screenshot still staring at you. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of types of documents that can be automated. The reality of the situation is that modern workflows have evolved way beyond this, and most teams' data is already online, siloed across dozens of tools. And with LiveDocs, our goal is to save millions of hours of productivity lost every year to manually updating document and sluggish document workflows. So if you want to take LiveDocs for a spin or to provide feedback, head over to livedocs.com.
Am I supposed to give feedback now? Danny, you're...
Yeah, we're supposed to have a quick conversation about it. I mean, first of all, Shaun, I hope you were listening, because I'm going to ask you, what do you think LiveDocs is?
I mean, I think LiveDocs is a programmable, document editor, collaborative document editor, somewhere between Google Sheets and Notion, but more programmable, better API integrations. I mean, that's like my quick distillation, but I have a bunch more to say. How'd I do? What do you think?
Yeah, I think you did 13 out of 10. Would ask you again. So, but Arsalan's really the real judge. He'll email you his score later. Yeah, kind of picking up where Quip left off, maybe. What are some interesting questions you have for Arsalan about the business? How would you think about go to market? What do you feel like you've learned by looking at other companies? I mean, go ahead.
It's a really great idea, and I mean, I'm impressed. I thought that was a Figma mock until Daniel asked the question, so that was a smart preemption. Look, like very candidly, like I co-founded a company, and the CEO sends out once a week a updated Google Sheet with like all of our sales data, and there's like a team of 4 or 5 people that input engineering updates and all these different updates. And the Google Doc is there's like 50 weeks in the year, and by the end of the year you have a hard time loading the document. And anyways, it's not the right way to solve this problem.
Document anarchy, as a term you've coined internally.
I very much think there is a need for improved documents.
I mean, isn't it interesting, Shaun, just a quick question. How often do you get kind of investor updates that include screenshots in them?
I mean, every day. I think the challenge you have here is one of distribution, where like in the case of Expanse, because we
Expanse is the company you co-founded. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So in the case of we use Google Suites, like products, for Gmail in particular. And so then you basically get Google Docs as an add-on for free. Yeah. And it's hard to convince people to pay extra money, like to jump over when you have something that's good enough, even though it's super frustrating. It's hard to convince them to pay for something new. Notion seems to be doing pretty well with that. But just my biggest question is distribution. Like, what is the motivation? Like, what is the ROI to convince people to pay for something extra beyond Google Sheets?
So that's a great question. So let's break it down into two parts. I think the first one is the way we're approaching it is that our goal in the short term, medium term, long term is to basically seamlessly fit into your workflow, as opposed to come in and ask you to replace your entire workflow tools. And we are working with allowing you to import and export documents, not only from Google Docs, Microsoft Office, whatever, but also allowing you to have the actual LiveDocs documents live inside your Google Drive, so you can do permissions management and all that way. So the way we're really thinking about it is an evolution, a gradual evolution, as opposed to like coming and replace your entire workflow. So integrating with these tools that companies already use has been the key priority from day one. The heading on the page has always been to go from reality to model, as opposed to model to reality, and really capture these real world interactions that people have with software and figure out a way to figure out what their end goal is and find a better means to that end. That might be by making it a plugin that lives inside of Google Docs even, but and eventually switching them over to the LiveDocs main editor, which is kind of in parallel with something that Grammarly did, where you can install a plugin that works with your existing workflow, but to access the full suite of powerful tools and emotional context behind text and whatnot, you have to switch over to that. That's the way we're thinking about it.
I'm kind of curious to ask, so obviously we have this interesting problem talking about distribution in the enterprise. There's basically two ways to play the game. Obviously, one is reduce friction, and Arsalan's flagging here, extensions, whatever. The other is to increase value, and maybe that's what kind of Notion does over time. The trick is, of course, in products where the value is kind of CAGR, it grows over time. You have to educate someone on how to use it. So kind of familiar topic. Now, I'm curious, Shaun, when you guys were starting Expanse, I mean, as I understand it, many of the customers are huge companies, huge enterprises, governments, whatever. How did you guys do early sales? Obviously, later on, the flywheel compounds, people know what Expanse is, but how did you do it in the early days? How did you get your first big contract or two?
Great question. So it was kind of 3 steps. The first step is we essentially got paid to be consultants, to do more or less like product development for other people to solve their problems. Second step, once after we'd done that for a while, is we literally started selling PDF reports. We had built this tool that can figure out what companies' networks are, and we would sell PDFs for $50,000 a piece. That would kind of be your moment in time cybersecurity presence.
That's great.
And then the third level is like building the full enterprise deployment that can kind of plug directly into Splunk or whatever security platform is running your business. And for that third level, I mean, it was doing full enterprise sales like that is incredibly hard. I do not recommend top-down sales on my worst enemy. Bottoms up is a much easier way to go. But in that case, it's building a relationship with someone over the course of a year. Something that I think is really underrated is just doing lots of favors for people. In that year-long process of while you're building trust, if you think of something of how you can be helpful to them, just offer it for free. And I think that's oftentimes what it takes to get to these full enterprise deployments. But so anyways, for us, it was those 3 things. And the intermediate one was trying to provide moment in time value, like one-off value, and charge what people would be willing to pay for it. And Daniel, these are the biggest companies in the world. And so they'd be willing to pay a lot for the moment in time value. But for you, Arsalan, I think there's opportunity to have bottoms up adoption, and that's much better.
Yes, we are approaching it from a bottom up perspective. But thank you so much.
Going bottoms up, guys. That's right. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Arsalan. Out of time, we got to move on. Jackson, direct us.
Yes. Next up, we have Alex Shevchenko. He is presenting from Canada and will be showing us Safewatch. This is a reminder to everybody who is watching right now. There are 3 features you can use to be chatting with any of our pioneers, following them, which allows you to connect with them after the event, and also distributing points to your favorite presentations. Go ahead, Alex.
Okay. Hey, everyone. I'm Alex Shevchenko from Montreal, Canada, and I'm presenting Safewatch, an application that connects to your existing security cameras and gives them superpowers through object detection and more. So traditional security cameras have a feature for motion detection alerts, but if you ask anyone who has ever used them, they'll tell you that they kind of suck. They're unreliable, send alerts way too often, and don't tell you what's happening because they don't know what's happening. They only see motion and not actual objects. That's where Safewatch comes in. With Safewatch, you can connect to your existing security camera without any additional hardware and create detectors for things that you care about. So if you create a person detector and a person appears in your backyard like a thief, you'll receive a notification saying that there's a person, and not like with motion alerts cameras that tell you when a squirrel runs through your backyard or a leaf falls from a tree. But if you have a more complex use case, for example, you let your dog run around your backyard and he keeps trampling and destroying your flowers, with Safewatch, you could draw a bounding box around your flowers, create a dog detector, and when your dog gets near them, you'll be notified. But why get notified about a problem instead of fixing it? You could also integrate Safewatch with if this then that and a smart sprinkler, and when your dog gets near your flowers, activate the sprinkler automatically, get the dog wet and away from your flowers. So Safewatch integrates with Zapier, if this then that, and if that's not enough, you could even build your own application around Safewatch through webhooks. So if you have security cameras at home or even at work, head on to usesafewatch.com to connect your cameras and try it out today. And if you have any questions, you can reach me at alex@usesafewatch.com.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Alex. Then it's also a great idea. You know, Sequoia is a small investor in a company called Verkada, which I think has some of this similar kind of capturing a similar idea, but they're vertically integrated. They've decided to actually like build the cameras themselves and try to sell to office buildings and, you know, like big, you know, college campuses, et cetera. But also to go all the way from the actual cameras up to providing some of the software on top. And this is a really interesting approach of like just taking the raw video feed and outputting the insights. My biggest, I think there's like my two biggest questions are, one, a lot of times like people have trouble actually extracting the insights from like the product or from the data. And like, if someone's very technical, they're gonna figure out how to use this. But I can just, it feels like the average consumer would have a hard time, you know, getting all the way to insights from this. How do you think about that? Like, who's your target user? Is it the average, you know, parent watching their child, you know, and integrating with like a Nest Cam? Or is it like companies? Like, how do you think about who's going to use this?
Yeah, for now, we're targeting basically people who do home automation. So like the people who like browse Reddit home automation and have like these super giant like workflows of things in their houses. So that's our first demographic. And then, yeah, right now it is kind of hard to access that insight and make those workflows if you don't know, like if you're not super technical. That's why in the future we're planning to build like kind of like these pre-built packs of workflows. Like, I'm a pet owner, here are some things that you can do automatically. I have a baby at home, here's a pre-built pack for you. But like right now we don't have them available, but that's something that we will be adding in the future.
That's smart. And can you get it, like, you know, what is the underlying hardware where this is designed for, at least in the beginning? Like, is it optimized for Nest Cams? Is it optimized for like the Nanit baby monitors? Is it, you know, is it like optimized for legacy video products?
Yeah, so we basically can connect to any classic cameras that support the UNVIF format, which is like most traditional kind of open cameras like HIK Vision, D-Link, and things like that offer that format. We can integrate with basically any of them. And as long as you have like above standard resolution, you should be fine with using this.
Got it. I think Daniel said that was the last question. I would just say, really good idea. I like how you're starting with Reddit home automation as like a savvy group of people that really care about this problem. And that's like a great first kind of user persona to target.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Shaun. Perfecto.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Alex. We have one more for you, Shaun. We have Sam Abrika from the UK. He'll be presenting Cash Coach.
Sam, you are muted, FYI.
Hi, everyone. I will start by sharing 3 facts that you probably know. Millennials are the worst at financial planning. And software didn't solve this problem. Nothing addressed their spending behavior. However, we know that gamification changes people's behavior. So we are bringing the power of gamification into the world of personal finance and create a gamified universe where people can compete at saving. The goal is to save as much as possible from your real life income to level up your in-game avatar. And Cash Coach is the character which gives monthly saving challenges, tracks your progress, and keeps you motivated on a daily basis. All your spending behavior will be reflected through your avatar. The experience bar reflects the amount of income saved. There's a poison bar showing the credit card debt. And your avatar can progress up to level 5. We launched that 1 month ago in the UK, and our core users are very active. They're competing in their solo challenges. And now we are developing the multiplayer mode so that they can compete with their friends. And if they can't be their friends, then they can hire Cash Coach for $6.99 a month. And it will tell them all the actions they need to take to win. And for all users, Cash Coach will monitor all the bills and try to find a cheaper deal. We'll take a commission on each switch. I have 2 great co-founders. We all love gaming. Alex owns the tech, Angela does the illustration, while I take care of the game mechanics and the data science. So if you have money, you can invest in our crowdfunding. Here is the link. And if not, then I strongly encourage you to download the app right now. Thank you very much.
So just first question, for someone to get going with this, like when they, we think a lot about like the friction to get onboarded successfully. What is the process? Like if I download the app and I can do it later, like to integrate my bank or, what different, my credit card, like what do you need to do? How fast and easy is that?
It's pretty quick. So the process is you sign up as an anonymous user, you pick your avatar, your nickname, then we use open banking. It directly connects through the APIs of your banks and credit cards. So today it's only in the UK. In 30 seconds, you can be set up.
And how will that work in other countries? Like, is there an equivalent thing to open banking to make it really fast and easy to get online?
So open banking started in the UK. That's where it's the most advanced. It's coming to the rest of the European Union, still a bit behind in terms of data quality. In the US, all banks are now using web scraping to do all the aggregation. So there's a bit more friction. People need to input the passwords, but they are also developing their APIs. So it's going to come to the US very soon.
And in terms of the gamification, what do you want to build next? It seems like you've built kind of these virtual, like you can level up your character. Do you want to have physical rewards like cash rewards or prizes? Do you want to what's the vision for how to gamify it even more?
Mm-hmm. There are a lot of game mechanics that we want to implement. The first one will be to have the personality traits from, so your avatars, for example, if you start to drink too much, to spend too much on drinking, it will look drunk, and all your behaviors will reflect your avatar through personality traits. And you can gain positive traits, you can gain negative traits, and they be updated on a weekly basis. Then what we want to do is to have virtual Cash Coach coins. So for example, everything that you have saved in the real life, you have equivalent in coins, and then you can spend. For example, you can buy your virtual suits or your fancy handbags with your coins. But if you spend and waste it all in real life, then it will destroy all your equipment.
And just part of why I asked the question is, with a lot of these types of products, people will oftentimes kind of get bored at some point and churn off. And so how do you think about like retaining your users and keeping this exciting for a very long period of time? Is it just that this becomes like the key place where they learn about their finances and manage their finances, or do you have other ideas?
So far, we are pretty good on the retention and on the engagement. Our users use the app 7 times a week, and the industry average is 1.2. The long term will be to give them challenges that is always motivating them. They always have a next step to reach. And everybody wants one day to own a house or have bigger like investment goals. So the sky is the limit.
Daniel, you pop back on. Do you have a question?
No, I was just going to warn us that we're running low on time. So kind of last question, maybe Shaun, I'm going to ask you this, so don't mute yourself quite yet. Mobile apps getting distribution obviously is hard. You know, kind of given what you see here with Cash Coach, what would be your kind of initial go-to-market strategy? What would be the niche, the market that you would target?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask Sam this because I mean, there really is app fatigue in general. You just see it in like download rates of new apps.
Sam, maybe you tell us who are you going to hit up early?
Or how do you think about growth and like getting people to download the app in the first place?
Our first users, typically they have their first jobs. They need to manage their money for the first time, pay the rent, the bills, etc. They are not necessarily completely prepared for that. And that's typically the people who really like Cash Coach and the user experience. Then for the growth, we want them to compete with their friends. We want them to be really proud when they save. And if everybody can bring 1-2 friends to compete and becoming better, then it will be a self-reinforcing viral loop. So I think that will be our primary growth channel. I think the second growth channel will be through all the education that we have to do around financial education. And we want to create the Cash Academy, which will be a place that anybody can learn everything they want about money for free. And that will be very good for SEO and generating traffic.
Super interesting. Sadly, I think we are out of time. Sam, thank you very much. Shaun, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
So sad we didn't get a chance to tell everyone your fastest marathon time.
No, don't worry.
What's that? I can't hear you. All right, Jackson, move on.
All right. Our next host is Traynor. Des is the founder of Intercom. Just a second. And our first pioneer with Des is Karen Serfaty from Argentina, and she will be presenting Palabra. Hello, Des.
Hey, everyone. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Very well, thank you. I decided to wear Nike as well because it seemed to be the thing to do.
Awesome. All right. Go ahead, Karen.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Hi, Des.
Hi.
So I will be presenting Palabra, which is segment IO for emails. What we do is we help companies email users based on what they do. So let's say a new user sign up, you want to send a welcome email. You can do this very easily with our app. But you want to do more complex stuff, like I want to wait 2 days and then send them some onboarding advice. I can do that too. And these are all cards, so you can just move them around and change the sequence of emails to make it fit your needs. And you don't even need to think about the sequence of emails. You can just pick one of our templates for the most use cases. For example, let's say a user searched for a product, but they didn't buy. You pick one of these templates. And you don't even really need to write the emails. We have a lot of emails written for you for basic stuff like welcoming users, offering them advice or asking for feedback. And you can, of course, edit all these emails before sending them to the users very easily. So why are we building this? Companies need to improve sales and retention, and they need to send better segmented messages to do it. And the problem is that the tools we use for email marketing today were created a long time ago, and sending these segmented messages is kind of hard. And what's interesting is that companies already have a lot of data about their users in the platforms they use. Like you can email all your, for example, paying customers. You just connect Stripe and we know who your paying customers are. You don't need to fill a form to do it. So you can do very interesting stuff like emailing your paying customers who logged in last week, who bought your product once, for example. We launched 3 weeks ago. We have 150 users. We are growing 20% weekly. And the way customers find us is mostly through content and direct sales. This is me. I'm a software engineer. I've been working full-time on this project for the past 2 months. And that's it. We are live on product hunt. So if people in the audience want to vote, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Cool. This is awesome. As you'd guess, I actually know this space pretty well.
Yeah.
Because I think, yeah, way back when we sort of shipped the first version of products like this. It's obviously over the last 10 years, this area has grown significantly. Where do you think your competitive angle will be against, I'll leave Intercom out of it, but like, let's say ConvertKit or let's say customer.io?
Yeah, I think the way we started is by talking to a very specific group of users, which in our case is non-technical people who use tools like Zapier and Airtable, tools like that. So we help them integrate very easily with the tools they use. For these users, tools like Customer.io is extremely expensive and it's very hard to use. So we help them with simple UX, better pricing, basically.
And the simple UX comes from the idea of like, it's effectively no code, is that right? Or is there also a coded version if you wanted it, or? You
can integrate directly with JavaScript and more complex stuff,
Gotcha.
But you can do everything without code if you need to.
That makes sense. If you're not using the coded version, I presume your triggers are restricted to what's surfaced by the connections you've put in, is that right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. For the customers who are using you, are they using drip or triggered emails for the first time, or are they switching from competitors?
That's a good question. I think most of the users that are using it today were looking for something like this and couldn't find anything that suit their needs. So I would think that is the first time they're doing it. We have some bigger customers who are moving from something else, but most people are doing it for the first time.
When you think about like let's say the future of email, for lack of a better word, do you anticipate branching into like either like browser notifications or like using modern messaging tools, say like Push or Slack or something like that as an alternative?
Definitely. I think what's interesting is trying to improve customer communication, whatever customers are. And we started with emails because it's maybe a problem that people feel they have today, but we definitely need to move to other spaces soon.
I presume I'm going to get out of time in a second, but another area, I guess something we have bumped into and I've seen a lot of our competitors bump into is like, as you scale email, you run into all sorts of interesting problems, one of which is like, say, trust and credibility and deliverability and send stats. People will use your tool to spam and they will use your tool in malicious and nefarious ways. Have you invested anything in that yet, or is that kind of like the future's problem?
Yeah. I think our main tool against that today is that we only let you build like your list of customers based on people who made some event on some of your apps or somewhere else. You cannot import a list of contacts today. I think that's like a good measure today, but in the future, yeah.
Cool. And then my very last question is, as this grows, do you expect to stay at the, relatively speaking, like the bottom of the market, so like a large number of small users, or do you expect moving up market and having like closer to enterprise customers who will want like Marketo integrations and all sorts of like attribution metrics and all that sort of stuff? Do you have an opinion on which you'll do?
Yes, I would prefer to move into the enterprise world a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. This is really, really good. Congrats.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Karen. Thank you, Des. Next up, our next pioneer is Ina, and Ina is presenting from Belarus and showing us Werbot. Ina, go ahead.
Yeah. Hello. Do you see my presentation? Yeah. So, hello, my name is Ina, and I'm co-founder of Werbot. I will start with the fact that only 7% of companies can exactly name all the people having access to their servers. And server credentials are unsafely stored in files, emails, or Google Docs, or shared with unknown people so often that there should be a simpler solution. So this is Werbot. Imagine you are a server owner with several developers working for you. So to securely provide access to your server, you just need to sign up, create a company account, and add there your server informations. Then you can invite your employees, your remote workers, or your freelancers. These people will be able to connect to your server through our platform as soon as you activate the sharing. It is also possible to make some restrictions on your server work because, for example, you can set working time or you can grant access only from a specific country or IP address. As you can see here, you can activate or block any user in just one click. Werbot provides a single sign-on to unlimited number of servers so that developers can forget about different passwords, keys, and settings. And also companies and server owners can not only share the success, but also can control the work performed on server with log records and screencasts of every server session. Our product can work as SaaS model or also can be installed on company servers on-premise. We started to work on it in September 2018, and last summer we presented our MVP. And now there are 22 pilots from different software development companies using Werbot. And finally, meet our amazing team having many years of experience in DevOps development and cybersecurity. Join us today and increase the security of your data. Thanks.
Very interesting. Your second last slide answered what was going to be my first question, which was some version of who still uses servers today. But I think, like, obviously banks, financial services, is your target market potentially quite specific in a good way, as in it's quite addressable, people who like are still in a world of managing fleets of servers, people who don't use Amazon or Azure or anything like that?
So yes, our target market is quite specific. We are now focused on enterprise solutions. That's why we're trying to sell to big software development companies or even software company having more than 1,000 servers to manage. As our product works with all kinds of servers, so there can be cloud servers or physical servers. So we can be also, we can target also smaller companies to medium companies.
Could somebody who uses, say, Amazon or Google Cloud or anything, would they still be customers, or would their own hosting tools be enough?
They also can be our customers because on our platform, you can regroup different servers from different providers. So you will manage it from one place. And also for your developers, it will be easier because they won't need to have a lot of settings, a lot of different passwords, keys, so on.
How does a company solve this today? Is it truly as you described, that they end up with like emails chains back and forth with credentials, or is there any solution for this at the moment?
Well, actually, every company has its own solution, but a lot of companies are still having these passwords in emails and docs and Google Sheets, or, for example, they are sharing with even unknown people, with freelancers or with remote workers, which are not belonging to the company's employees. So yes, this problem exists.
Yeah. When larger companies are considering buying Werbot, I assume they're in some sense they're now adding you to their security posture. So has that put like extra compliance regulations on you? Do you need to be like SOC 2 compliant or anything like that?
Yes, of course, and we are prepared for this because we understand that these data are very sensitive. So as for security, all the data are encrypted. And for enterprise solution, we are planning to work with HSM. So it's like to increase the security of the data if in case of the hacks.
For sure. And last question is, how do you intend to attract customers?
Now we are attracting customers from direct sales to our enterprise version. And as we have a SaaS version, so we have a website, we have some promo, we do some emailing campaigns, and so on.
Cool. Excellent. Cool. I have no more questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Ina. Next up, Des, your final pioneer today and also our final pioneer in our lineup here is the team from there, and they are Mo and Ben presenting from Iran and Estonia, presenting there.
And then
hello.
Started. Jackson, what do we have after this?
Yes, next up after this, we have a double special feature. We have Dylan Field, the CEO and founder of Figma, doing a bit of a retro pitch with Daniel, and then followed that by a bit of a chat with Daniel between Sam Teller and Daniel on what it's like as Elon's chief of staff.
Perfect. Now, Des, are you in Ireland?
I am, yes.
Oh, great. We have now a connection from Ireland to Iran through the magic of Zoom and the internet.
Awesome.
Take it away, guys.
Hey, great to be super happy to be presenting to you, Des. We are building There, which is presence for remote teams. This is the app we are building. Your teammates, your list of teammates in your menu bar, but it's not static. You can interact with it and see their current status. Let's get back to the status later, but focus on how you can talk to them. You see that red button? When you press that, you can talk to your teammates and they get a little notification, which is interactive at the top of their system. And by pressing a key, they can talk to you. And after you're done, ask the question, collaborate on a document, you can close it. No awkward moment to join, to end, and no passing links to join. Let's show you a quick demo. For example, you're working on a document with a teammate. Let's see how you would talk to your teammate. Here, you would click the red button, talk, and then immediately when they reply, you're in real time talking to each other. And it's so low key and frictionless, you don't feel it's there, but it's there and it's like sitting together. And then you close it when you're done with it. The problem you're solving arises even when the very first person is out of the office. Collaboration and communication become the biggest struggle. And in an office, we can talk, but without one, we only talk in meetings and default to text. And text is slow for quick collaboration, as we all know. Enter office of the future. Ambient presence, frictionless talking, which is the core of successful communication, and collaborative screen share when you are not working in Figma, Notion, Google Docs, because in those you have multiplayer. In our screen share, we give you cursors, you can type, just like for helping with code or solving a bug. But there's more. We have lots of little things to help you broaden the bandwidth of your communication. For example, a status done right. You can reply and upload your teammates' status updates. You have an office door which you can close to stay silent, to really get into the zone, and a quick nudge, which is a very light touch way to just grab attention of a teammate, but not so like a Slack notification, which demands their full attention. Our team is 3-person, all technical. We are launching in 4 weeks, and our previous app is used by thousands in most respected distributed teams across the world. And our app is available today for downloading the beta. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is really cool. I think about workplace communication quite a bit, so I was excited to see this. There's loads of different questions I want to ask, but generally, right, what type of communication will this capture? So on a scale of like project update through to, hey, let's go for coffee or whatever.
Yeah, by providing you with a set of different methods to communicate, you can range from, hey, let's resolve this bug, let me show you this bug, to let's review this document together, to, hey, I'm bored, I'm just nudging you if you're also bored. If not, that's totally okay. And if you don't want to proactively talk to a person, you can just post a status update and people who are same as you in the app can watch them, react, reply, and then you're connected, bringing that serendipity you lost when you left the office.
I like the idea of this being a layer. I think like as in it exists independent of all tools. I think there's a lot of strength you get from that. What I keep wondering is, like, what's your like thesis for like workplace communication? When I think about this, I think will in the future, do you think communication will be more async or more sync, more visual or more voice? More text.
That's awesome. Glad you asked. You asked. Well, that's two questions. First, async via sync, and then text via voice. So we actually have that in mind, and we believe communication works only if it's global. So, for example, if you talk in general where everyone can hear, we keep the log of the communication, and the next day when the teammate wakes up, they can play it through the story view at the top, and then you can get back and reply. So you also have the logs for teammates who are not there, and we also match teammates in a public space to their local remote workers for, I don't know, grabbing coffee, having a free side chat, but that's the next step. And so we are magically, you can both have async conversations and sync, but mainly the real quick collaboration happens when you both are, when you have 1 hour overlap, we want to make the best out of it. So
that's like
and for the text vs voice. So in the next, you can always have transcription, blah, blah, blah. But what we believe in, we are not replacing a Slack, although your Slack might become a bit more empty. But if we can make voice so powerful and the bandwidth super higher, you prefer it for quick collaboration and reserve text for announcements, for longer decision-making periods. You use Notion, Slack, Twist, Threads. You keep all those tools. We're not replacing them. But when you want to really, how many times you get text? Like, let's quickly resolve this on a call. Can you give me a Zoom link? We are perfect for that, for those moments too.
Do you think you'll have to recreate a lot of Slack over time? Will you have to add channels and groups and all that sort of stuff? Or
no, for having the rooms, we also have something in the lineup, which is ephemeral rooms. Just like in an office where you pick a desk at some place and someone can join you. We're not going to recreate a Slack specifically. That's the goal. And that's the reason we built the app this way. So it goes along whatever set of tools you want, Zoom, Slack, Threads, whatever.
That's awesome. Before I'm going to ask one more question, I do want to say, I think you've designed a really, really attractive and very cool looking product, and you should be genuinely, it's
actually, Des, I really love your product taste. I've seen your videos on YouTube, so that really means a lot for us to hear that from you. Thank you.
Well, congrats. It does seem to me like the anchoring idea here is the idea of a taskbar app. And I really do think there's something in that like it's a minimal app. Do you anticipate staying there? Will you have to go to mobile? Will you have to go to iPad, desktop, etc.?
We'll go to mobile because you might fear you miss something. We want to have that option for people because people work in a variety of different remote work situations, especially if we are looking at industrial workers like who are on the site in different around the city. They would love to have an iPhone app further along the road. But as having a bigger desktop app, only you do that if you have something really meaningful, for example, an office floor or something, but not just for sake of having.
Cool. This will be a super quick one. Sorry to the Pioneer guys. What makes this a work tool, do you think?
Sorry, what do you mean?
What makes this a tool for work versus a tool for would you use this to talk to your friends too?
We've seen communities really quickly adopt the tool to post their status updates and bond together, but this is mainly built for the workplace tools. But let's say, what app do we have for workplace that isn't being used by consumers in fun ways? If we are successful, I think both will benefit.
Yes, I agree. Okay, thank you very much for your answers.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you there, team. Thank you, Pioneers, and thank you, Des. Hugely appreciate it.
That was incredible. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you for the invite.
All right. Well, while the audience, while you get your votes in, we have a few special features coming up. First is Dylan Field, the CEO and founder of Figma, and he will be retro pitching Figma to Daniel as if sort of back in the 2013, 2012 stage. here comes Dylan.
Just bring him up on stage. He's just walking over.
Dylan.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Dylan, how are you?
Good. Good to see you, Daniel.
Good. Now I hear you have a special treat for us. I saw you actually have not just the oratory that you used to pitch Figma, but indeed the pixels that followed with it. Is that right?
I have a lot of pixels for you. So the sort of framing of this before I jump in is that.
And by the way, thank you so much for doing this, and fantastic haircut and beard. I see you've inverted the hair setup. That makes sense.
I was thinking I might shave before coming on, but I didn't have enough time.
Please, no. Be ragged and raw.
Makes us all a bit more lazy, but thank you for having me, and really cool to see all the pitches before this. Awesome. Well, I'll share my screen. The sort of context here is that Figma was very different in 2012, 2013, and we did not quite figure out where we're going to be going maybe until, more like 2014. And so you'll see some like of the trail that was leading to what Figma is today, but you also see a lot of things that are very different.
I'm giddy with excitement for this, so please take it away.
Awesome. So yeah, my name is Dylan, and this is Figma. So I'm on the left here. This is me. I'm a Teal Fellow and recently dropped out of Brown. Before that, I was at Flipboard twice actually, and did internships as well at LinkedIn, and was a research assistant at Microsoft Research. Evan Wallace on the right is my co-founder, and he was my TA at Brown. He was also at Pixar and Microsoft Office as well. We're really inspired by Brett Fichter's talk, Inventing on Principle. And this is a talk that I think everyone should watch. It's one of the most impressive technical talks I've ever seen. But one of the things that Brett Fichter said in this talk that I thought was, it really resonated with me, was that if people cannot create, and that's a moral wrong, and that our tools should make it simple enough so that everyone can be creative. And when I thought back to my work as a designer at Flipboard, I just remembered how frustrated I was with my tools. Primarily I was working in fireworks, but honestly, the tools were not very intuitive, and they were not very collaborative. They were very hard to use and very hard to find information with as well. And so Evan and I started talking about what could we do with WebGL. And this is actually a demo Evan made a few years back, and it's of a ball in a pool of water. And so I can move it around. I can even press G, and the ball will drop and rise to the surface again. And you can see that this is all in the browser in real time. And it's all made with WebGL, which means that you can use the GPU in your computer to have this real-time graphics in the browser. And we thought, okay, if we can do this in WebGL, like we could probably also look at building basically the entire creative suite in WebGL as well. And so I think there's sort of three aspects, if you think about what it means for creative tools to go online, that are really important. The first is access. The second is building community and a network. And the third is education. So on access, I think it's really important that these tools are free if you're working in public, and also that they're really intuitive as well. I think that on the connected side, how can we make a GitHub for creatives? How can we make it so that you can be able to get collaboration, have collaboration, and give feedback on work? And also how do you make a global community around design? For example, when I tried to find this globe graphic on the left-hand side here, it actually took like an hour to find it. And why can't I just go online and actually be able to find that and use that as long as I attribute back to the creator? I don't think that, honestly, in 2013, I don't think that real-time simultaneous editing, that's probably not going to be a thing. But I do think that people want to give feedback, and that's something that people really need. The third thing here, this third pillar, is education. How can you make it so there's recipes and also an opportunity for people to connect via this network and mentor each other so we can make it so that more people are creative in the world. So with that, I'll show you some of the work that we've done already. This is all really rough, and it's a bit divergent from where we're at now today, but I want to show you what's possible in the browser. This is all things we've explored, and really now we're more focused on graphic design. So this first one is one of the first experiments we did, which is basically a way to do Poisson bundling on the CPU. And it shows that you can do this in the browser even without WebGL, but it's not quite as fast. I'll show you the WebGL version so it's just a little bit faster. So for example, if I press run here and I move this, you can see that the plane is sort of blending as it goes in the sky. Or if I run this, you can see this eye is going into the skin there. One version of this that we made as well, and I have to just move the Zoom UI, is this face swapping application. We made this back in maybe August, September of 2012 as one of our first things that we built. So for example, if I take Patrick's photo here, I can cut out this region of his face, and then I can take Daniel's photo, and I can drag Patrick over this.
Oh my God.
And now I can actually
not safe for work.
I can change the mask.
Did you do this to the investors you were pitching live?
Not always. It didn't always have a good response to that. We figured that out pretty fast. I kind of like actually shaved off a little bit of eyebrow there. So I'll just...
Worst experience I've had since people made fun of me in high school.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's great. It's great.
Those feelings.
It's my dream. This is my dream. I always wanted to look like this. Exactly. Oh my God. I'm taking.
The result is something like kind of looks like Matt McInnes, I think. Anyway, this is actually a bit broken now. It's bit rotted, but basically you could do selection. So if I draw white on what I want and black what I don't want, it would have selected the flower back in the day, but now it's actually a bit broken. Another version of that is image matting, which basically you draw white on what you definitely want, black on what you definitely don't want, and gray on the in-between pixels. And this way you can extract a foreground from the background. So if I press run here, you can actually see sort of this alpha extraction as well. And same thing for this girl taking a photograph. If I press run, it'll go through that and get a pretty good mask. This is another experiment we did, which was around color lines. So basically the idea was to take a photo, and then from there you could extract sort of out, here are the different colors in that photo, and you could see the gradients visualized in space. So for example, if I take this blanket right here, and I want to shift that color line, you can see that this is basically creating a mask of that blanket and then shifting that in the image. We took that one step further and kind of combined that tech by taking this graph cut approach, and then from there saying, okay, what if we could make it so that you define the mask, and then from there you're also able to change the hue. And the results were really cool. Another one is the Firefox logo. So if I do this, and then I can actually change the gradient as well, which is pretty neat. Another thing we built, and I actually don't have the photos I used to demo with, but here I found one from 2012 or 2011 of me. This is a photo editor we built. And so it's sort of like a Lightroom in the browser. You can very easily crop. You can also bump up exposure or take it down. Daniel, if you don't worry, you don't look that scary compared to this. I can take the shadows up. I can take the highlights down.
Live shot of you after your all hands.
Exactly. This is right after all hands. Hopefully not. You can also, I can go and I can also change the tint as well by doing sort of, correcting the white balance. I can also go in here and I can, change red eye, for example, really easily.
Now, did you have all this stuff as part of your pitch?
We did, yeah. I actually have the videos from the 2013 pitch originally, and it's
you
pretty
just walk in and say like, I've basically built Photoshop or Illustrator with a bunch of independent kind of hacks.
Well, we didn't really have anything that was Illustrator at that point. We had done a lot of photo editing, computational photography stuff, but the thing is, we did it all in. It was all sort of individual projects.
Right.
It wasn't stitched together yet, and that was really, I think, in retrospect, one of the things that was hard. Another thing that's kind of fun here is just we built like a cloning tool. So if I take this hot air balloon here and I maybe make a new hot air balloon, things like that. This actually didn't really go with it at all, but we had built this this basically brush tool so you could get the color palettes of a photo, and then from there I could like get the brush out. In retrospect, that animation was a bit cheesy, but it was a fun concept at least. So then sort of after showing the demo off, we would talk about, okay, here's where we're going next. This is June 2013. And so of course, 6 months from now, we're gonna go ship this thing. We're gonna have a closed beta. And I think what was really interesting at that time was that we were focused on really having the community be the first part of the product that was out there. We thought we'd go for this freemium model, we'd launch the community, and from there, we'd follow up with an enterprise SaaS thing. And eventually, of course, we inverted that. And it wasn't until last October 2019 that we actually launched the community. Spring 2014, only 6 months later, we're gonna be launching our tablet version, which unfortunately is still not out, although the community around Figma is starting to build that, which is cool. I think that we were also really focused on just like, how do we make it so this is more accessible to everyone? So let's see at the very top is the professional that has a lot of ability, a lot of money, but for people that are hobbyists and prosumers, how to make it so that they can use Figma as well as sort of this general purpose creative tool. And then the competitive landscape side, I will release the videos that are from 2013 the next few weeks of the original pitch. And one of the things that I famously say that I was a bit ashamed of now is that I said, oh yeah, Sketch, they're very buggy. I don't think that they're going to be a long-term competitor here. So clearly that was the wrong call. And then we thought that we would be hiring quite fast and that would just be very easy. In reality, it took quite a long time to hire and also reach these milestones. So yeah, that's the pitch. I will stop sharing and I can take some questions if that's useful.
Oh God, that's incredible. I think that's incredible. So I guess one question that's top of mind is you obviously, you come in with a real tour de force of JavaScript, right? So, to me, this seems incredibly awesome and exciting, but obviously you may have gotten rejected early on. When people said no, what were the reasons and the rationale?
Well, I think there's all sorts of reasons people say no, but in retrospect, the ones that matter are the ones that end up people that I really respected later. So for example, one of the people that I later became a key force in Figma was John Lilly. He led our Series A round, but he passed in the seed. And sort of the reason he gave at the time was, look, I just don't think you know what you're doing yet. And in retrospect, he was completely right. He said, look, if you want to grab coffee once in a while, we can do that. And hopefully I can be helpful. I can introduce you to people. Maybe we'll figure the strategy out together, but I just can't do this right now. I don't think you're quite there yet. And then as we started to talk more, he was really helpful with strategy. We really figured out, okay, here's how we narrow our focus. We go into interface design. There's a big opportunity there. We focus on the collaboration elements. Actually multiplayer is important. We're going to go do a bunch of this stuff and eventually then he led the Series A. But yeah, I think that other reasons, I think people didn't get it, but then there's also people that did, like Danny Reimer at Index, who we both know. I showed him the seed pitch that I just showed you, probably a bit better because at the time I was more practiced. And, he called me that night and said, I'm in. So, there's people that also, I think, had incredible vision and probably saw it in a way that I did not even see it yet and had that thesis.
Super interesting. Another thing that I really loved about your pitch is it is very mission driven, not really market driven. And I'm kind of curious to get your thoughts on that. Would that be your advice to people seed pitching today? Or do you wish in hindsight you would have gone in with the here's the TAM and here are the buyers?
Yeah. Well, I think that, I think it's really important that, eventually you have to get there, but at the same time, I think that it's okay to not have to start there. And it's more important that you go build things that are interesting. And, in retrospect, if we hadn't gone through this journey of building all these other things, one of the things that we didn't even show off was a meme generator, right? That was the worst week of Figma was when we built a meme generator because it was, Evan and I looked at each other and we went, wow, what are we doing? This has no meaning or purpose. And we feel like we're completely afloat and why did I drop out for this? I think in retrospect, that was defining for us because it showed us that here are the things that we do want to work on. And then also because, Evan is amazing. He built the text rendering for that meme generator as this really well-engineered solution that we later were able to use in Figma, the actual product. And so I think by building and kind of exploring, you end up in places you might not expect if you just go with this traditional top-down, the Mad Libs of entrepreneurship approach, where you say, okay, what problem am I solving? Who am I solving it for? Why are they going to choose me over the competition? How much are they going to pay me? And then if you multiply those things together, it equals this huge market, right? And it's you can ask all those questions and they're good questions to ask, what's the problem? Why am I better? What's the competition, et cetera. But if fundamentally you're not building something that's actually in the future, then why are you there? And is it going to be defensible at all?
Yeah, super interesting. And I'm somewhat struck by, there's a great episode of Ali G, I think, where he goes to pitch ice cream gloves and he defines the TAM as the Google query results for ice cream times Google query results of gloves times people that have hands or something.
Perfect.
Yeah, which is a bastardization of that concept. But I guess one thing I am wondering is, the beautiful thing about Figma in my mind is that it's a great story of a labor of love turning into a great company. But there's a lot of labor of loves that just get stuck in the labor of love thing. And so maybe going McKinsey on this to the extreme is a bad idea, but do you have any other advice for people that are in the desert and aren't quite sure what their orientation should be?
Well, I think it's, you know, starting a company is such an existential process in the first place. And I think, you know, if you're in the desert and you're building things that you like, hopefully you can take a step back and say, okay, you know, life isn't so bad. Like, I'm actually building things that are interesting to me, and have the perspective that even if you were building something that was working, it might not be something that you like, and to keep going and building things that actually you enjoy and you're passionate about. Because if you don't do that, then, you know, why are you there in the first place? There's a million things to build in the world, but not many that you'll find personally interesting or you'll be passionate about. So focus on your passions and keep going in that direction. And even if it doesn't work out, I'm sure it'll lead you to something interesting. But hopefully it will. And there's a big community like Pioneer to support you. And so you're not alone either.
Well, we're going to be hard pressed to find better words to end on. Dylan, thank you so much. This is absolutely incredible. I guess I do have one final question for you.
Yeah.
If you weren't working on Figma today, what's kind of an interesting space, and take us out of the whole Adobe suite. So if you weren't working on that stuff today, what would you be working on?
The two areas that I think are most interesting right now are privacy and fertility.
Interesting and ominous. All right, we'll leave it at that.
We'll talk more another time. But
yeah, totally. We can go in depth later. Thank you again.
Thanks for having me.
I think hopefully there's hundreds, maybe thousands of people watching this that got the sense today that everything big starts small. Starts with a bunch of. I mean, I thought that whole thing was pretty awesome, actually, but with a bunch of HTML pages.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you again. All right, Jackson.
Thank you, Dylan. All right, our final special feature of this event is going to be a conversation between Daniel and Sam Teller. Sam is the former chief of staff, Elon Musk's former chief of staff, and he's graciously given us some time to chat about that with Daniel. Hey, how you doing, Sam?
Hey, how's it going?
Great. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackson. How are you, Sam? I see you have a lot of vegetation around you. You seem to be in a healthy environment.
I'm in Canada, beautiful country. I forgot to wear my Nike gear. I see that most of this day was sponsored by Nike. So
terrible, yeah.
Yeah. Apologies for that. But
look, we're just waiting for our SpaceX jackets. But
yeah, go to SpaceX.com/shop. You don't need to wait any longer.
That's great. They're quite expensive. It'd be great to get a discount.
I think we've priced them like relatively affordably.
I feel like it's the cost of a small Falcon 9 rocket at this point, but that's my personal opinion.
Such thing as a small Falcon 9.
Well,
one size fits all for
compared to Starship.
No, but it's on the SpaceX apparel. We do get a lot of, including Kanye. SpaceX has had a number of like unbelievably talented people reach out saying, "Hey, you guys need to up your game and design cooler stuff." So I think there'll be some interesting new releases. And we had a lot of asks for, or SpaceX had a lot of asks for spacesuits. People want their own spacesuits after this week.
Now that you mention it, I think I need one too. Is that the final chapter in the master plan? You know, there's the one for Tesla that ends with building a super cheap car. Is the ending of the SpaceX plan just building a new gap?
Exactly. It's actually just like to open the first pizzeria on Mars. That's the plan.
That's great. That's great. So, okay, super interesting. At a high level, although few people know it, I think you've probably led the most interesting life of the last decade, or one of, having really been around our modern day Henry Ford. And now, of course, you've transitioned out. I guess at a high level, I don't know if you got a chance to watch some of the stuff we were just doing with Dylan, but there's something I think very interesting about the fact that a lot of people view Elon today almost as inhuman, as an alien, actually, maybe from Mars, because of his achievements. And yet you hung around him, and I assume you realize, that he is somewhat human, and that, just like Figma, everything big starts small. So I'd be curious to hear from you. What are kind of some stories of early SpaceX, early Tesla days that illustrate that point?
Yeah. Well, I was only around from 2014 to 2019, so the early stories I don't have as much firsthand experience with, and I think if you haven't read the Ashley Vance book, it's worth a read. And there are the stories about Elon flying to Russia and trying to buy engines himself, and a lot of, I think, like good examples that translate for people creating companies of any kind. I mean, the things that there are a lot of characteristics I think that anyone can see from the outside that make Elon successful, and his energy, his genius, his raw intelligence. I think his clarity of vision and of mission, and how that allows him to recruit some of the best people in the world and retain them. When people at Tesla have a hard day, like what stops them from going across the street to Apple, Facebook, Google, and just saying, hey, I'm going to get a little raise and some free soft shell crab for lunch, and do this. It's not that there's anything wrong with working at those companies, but the mission and the purpose is arguably the best retention and recruiting tool of all. I think some of what you don't see and what's less evident from the outside are things that is the degree to which having a high tolerance for pain has made him successful from the very beginning and continues to this day. And I think if you look back to 2018, for instance, when Tesla was going through its famous production hell, these stories about Elon being on the floor, working on things himself, sleeping in the factory, these were not PR stunts or kind of manufactured anecdotes, because I was right there living it too. This was real life, and Elon certainly believes in taking the pain that you're asking others to take. And part of what makes him successful is that he's just willing to take so much of it. And so when that for him meant doing things himself. That means learning how to install glass or install a seal on the car glass or turning the wrench or being on a line. And when we would at 1 or 2 or 3 a.m. when we'd be exhausted, Elon would say, you guys go into the conference room and sleep on the couch there. I'm going to sleep on the floor under my desk. And there were no journalists there. There was no one to ever see that. There were 4 people in the world who could tell you that story, but he would get on the floor of the factory with the bright lights, put a pillow under his head, put maybe sometimes another pillow over his head to block out the light, and sleep on the floor while we were at least had some a couch and some soundproofing from the room. So I think that there's another example from that period. His birthday's at the end of June, and his friends and family wanted to celebrate with him down in LA, but the paint shop was down. And so what do? He suited up in a big white suit and marched into that paint shop, which is pretty cavernous and and not a lot of light, no natural light, lots of paint smells, and went station by station to try and accelerate the throughput of that part of the factory. And while we waited for something for some software to be updated or for a new test to happen, would just sit on the floor there and do emails and whatever. And this was on his birthday. Celebration was 10 minutes. We had some cookies in the conference room, in the back. So this is I think these are the things that are and I apologize for rambling on a long answer to a short question, but I think that when you think about what makes him successful, it's not that he's this CEO who can just wave a magic wand because he's Elon, and then and things happen. For sure that there is some of that, and there are things that Elon can do being who he is and in the position he's in that other that if you're just starting a company you can't, without a doubt. But also a lot of it, the majority of it, comes down to taking the pain and doing the chores himself. And at the end of the day, the buck stops with him. And that was time after time after time, remarkably reflected in his actions.
Well, I mean, tell us a little bit more about in those moments of at the 22nd mile of the marathon, What is he like? I mean, is he frustrated? Is he angry? Is he happy? Is he making jokes?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all of those things, and I think what an amazing thing about Elon, and that part of the reason why people love following him on Twitter, is his authenticity, and part of that is kind of transparency and vulnerability. And so if he's upset, he's going to be upset. If something's funny, he's going to he's going to laugh about it, and he's going to share it, and he's just there's not like one, I think like any person, I don't know, maybe not like any person, but there's not one mode that he gets into in those ways. He is a person who cares very deeply about what he's doing. And so to the extent, you hear about, extreme reactions or the way he deals with these things, is because his care and his desire to succeed is extreme. So yeah, I'd say it's a mix of what you said.
What does a day in his life look like?
Elon, another thing people don't realize, Elon spends the most of his day doing internal meetings on engineering and production. I think there's this, people say, he that's not to say he's not flying all around, but he's flying all around to go to the Tesla factory in Reno, to go to the SpaceX test site in Texas, to the Tesla factory in Shanghai, he's not going around to meet with presidents and investors and and things like that. And to the extent he is, because obviously it's not like he never does that, but it's a very small percentage of his time. So yeah, Elon's first and foremost, he's an engineer and he's a designer. And that's reflected, I would say, 90% of what he's doing on any given day, whether it's at SpaceX, Tesla, Neuralink, or the Boring Company, is focused on design, engineering, or manufacturing.
And when does his day start? Is he kind of a morning person, a nighttime person?
I won't comment on his specific rhythms, but needless to say, it's all the times, and he it's a huge advantage for anyone to not need much sleep, and he certainly benefits from that.
What do you feel like, you talked a lot about his ability to kind of endure, over the timeline of that you were with Elon, what were the kind of how would you say the hardest moments, the moments where you feel like he was that
was me, sorry. The hardest moments?
Yeah, over the course of the year, like what were the hottest hells, so to speak?
Oh man. I mean, it's hard to pick just one. There were Tesla faced a number of existential challenges, and I think the one that I mentioned in 2018, as we were ramping up production of Model 3, is probably the best documented. But there were major challenges in the scale up of Model X. That was the first time that I experienced this, sleeping in the factory. Certainly not Elon's first time doing so. One of the worst feelings in the world, and one that actually makes me sick to remember, but is witnessing a rocket failure, which unfortunately happened twice, during my time at SpaceX. It's like getting punched in the stomach, by Zeus or something. There were a number of challenges, but what people forget, and what all of you, anyone who started a company knows, is that every day is just problems and challenges, and it's just if you're creating it, you're just there to wake up and get punched in a different way every day, and sometimes it'll knock the wind out of you, sometimes it'll just leave a scratch. So it all kind of blends together, and it's having this resilience and energy and ability to withstand the pain during those tough times is essential.
How would you, one way of kind of noticing, obviously, that Elon has a skill is being in the factory with them at 3 o'clock in the morning. How would you test or think about knowing, if you're thinking of hiring or maybe investing in people, how would you get a spidey sense that they might have this resilience factor that you're talking about?
I think you ask people for examples of things that they've done, and you ask them for what in any aspect of their life, what is like evidence of exceptional ability. And so that doesn't need to be in running a company. That could be in extracurriculars in school, in the way that you want to Formula SAE competition. It could be from playing sports. It could be from military service. It could be from caring for a family member. It could be if you worked as a janitor that you found a smarter way to sort paper towels in the closet. So just really asking for specific examples that demonstrate exceptional ability, I think, is one thing. It's hard. You kind of have to have that spidey sense when you're looking for it. And those people that feel like we want, now as an investor and throughout my time investing in companies, you want to invest in those people who feel like they'd rather die than let their company die. And you can feel that. And when someone has that combined with vision and purpose, it leads you to see how really smart people want to come work for them. And that is really the essential thing. So it's do all these things combine to form a person that really smart people would want to go work for.
That's very interesting. One thing we were chatting a little bit with Dylan about with Figma is the degree to which one is very markets driven versus kind of very vision driven. And I'm curious to get your take, kind of working with Elon. How much of the conversation with him is about like, we need to do this because it's good for revenue versus we need to do this because it's good for the world?
Very little about the former. But I you don't have that privilege necessarily when you're a tiny company.
Yeah.
So but at this point, Elon is, and I believe SpaceX and Tesla are fundamentally trying to maximize usefulness to humanity.
Super interesting. So very much a different question. I mean, you've spent time on like a ton of frontier markets. Probably the two largest frontier markets, maybe alternative energy and space, that we'll see in our lifetime. What's something new that's exciting to you now?
There's so much. Well, it's funny because I spent the last 5 years, or since 2014 to 2019, kind of with these blinders on. So if it didn't have to do with SpaceX or Tesla or Boring Company or Neuralink, it just didn't exist in my world. And so now it's a very new approach where anything can be interesting. I mean, there are a couple things. One, it reminds me, Elon, when I started working for him in one of the first talks he did in 2014, I think after I started, was at MIT. And this happened a number of times over the years, but someone said, oh, Mr. Musk, if you're a young person today, what problems, should you work on? And he said, tunnels. And everyone, ha 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 ha, and he's like, no, I'm serious, tunnels. and this happened like many times until 2017 when Elon said, okay, no one, I just have to do it myself. So I still would say tunnels and infrastructure. There's a massive opportunity, and if there are any engineers out there who are interested in working at the Boring Company, I definitely encourage you to look. The company is growing really quickly, and there are some amazing high impact engineering opportunities there, especially for electrical engineers right now. Putting all that aside, there are so many interesting areas right now. I agree with the ones that Dylan said. I caught the end of his thing. One thing that's, this is kind of a weird one to give you some food for thought, but that's pretty interesting to me right now is actually the death care industry, which no one wants to talk about for obvious reasons, but there are some really interesting
death care.
I think there are interesting opportunities there, and I'm so if there's anyone out there who is starting a company in this space, I'd love to talk to you. It's interesting. There's a lot of aspects to it which are terrible from a consumer experience, and that the process, for instance, of buying a casket, if you are going that path is actually not so different than what it's like to buy a mattress, and kind of like that led to the inspiration for Casper, where you go in, there's no price transparency. They say, if our standard casket here will cost you $800, but if you really care about your grandmother and don't want her eyeballs to be eaten by worms, you will upgrade to our ultra premium casket. And there's, and they pull out a sheet of paper which says, look, this is the lowest price I can give you. So from that, there's software powering the
caskets. Smart caskets.
More caskets. We need caskets. Anyway, software powering the industry is really fragmented. There's a really interesting company called freewill.com out there, which does exactly what it sounds like. It allows you to make a will for free, and they make money because nonprofits pay them to be suggested as a recipient of money upon your death. So anyway, I think it's for obvious reasons people don't want to think about this area. So I think that there's opportunity there, and an opportunity to make people's lives less terrible during a time of pain.
Well, so, that was a morbidly interesting suggestion. Certainly an unexpected answer. Sam, thank you so much. I think this is awesome. I think people love hearing. I think the idea, the concept that perseverance is the key to success is a fantastic one, because I feel like that's something everyone can access. It's not about where you're from, the country you're in. It's not. It may even be less about intellect and more just about the ability to push through. So that's beautiful. Thank you so much. Enjoy Canada.
I will. Great to see you, Daniel. Take care.
Thank you again. All right. Now I have the honor and responsibility to do two things, really. One is tell you a little bit about who won our leaderboard in terms of presentation voting. And the other is to wish happy birthday to two of my colleagues here at Pioneer who had their birthday last weekend, one day after the next. They refused to show up for this particular event in the presentation. I don't know why, but I brought them here in their digital format. So Rishi and Jackson, just wanted to say, working with you is awesome. Super energizing, and everyone watching this should very much appreciate the work of these two individuals, not really me. As you can tell, they're also better looking and better dressed. They're unfortunately not sponsored by Nike, so that's something I have for myself. Anyway, all of that being said, all of you have been voting around and expending your precious internet points on our different presenters today. And so I want to just share with you who won, who got the most votes. In third place, we have LiveDocs, the kind of next generation Google Docs quick product. In second place, we have Rant, disappearing audio messages, kind of an asynchronous clubhouse, so to speak. And in first place, hailing from Iran, we have there. Building a sense of presence for remote teams. That's pretty exciting. Hopefully the content today was enjoyable for you guys. Look, I realize the internet is, certainly more varied, but Zoom isn't as engaging as the real world. And so we tried to keep it chipper and exciting for you. And hopefully, I really found the conversation with Dylan and Sam energizing. Hopefully you did too. Pioneer is something that is available to exactly 100% of people that have access to the internet. It is free, so you can go to the website and kind of get started. If you have a project that you're going to check out, you should certainly give it a go. There's literally nothing to lose. I mean, you could get started with a pseudonym. No one will see you in your nakedness, so to speak. And if you totally fail, no one will know. If you succeed, one day you'll be up here on this live stream. And if you really succeed, well, you'll come back to the live stream and do us a favor, just like Dylan did. Anyway, thank you again to my colleagues. Thank you again to everyone who's watching. Keep us posted if you have any feedback. You can email us team@pioneer.app. And with that, I'm going to leave it to you to the next time we meet on the internet. Thank you, everyone.